Hey, this is Adam Huxamo with ProjectionHub, and today I'm going to review a set of projections that a client sent over to us that they had been working on for their startup brewery. I'm just going to give some feedback on the structure and then some ways that we were able to kind of come in and help just make some improvements as they were trying to go through the process of raising investment or loan funding in this case. So the first thing I wanted to mention was you see up here that the model that was sent to us said that it's from the Brewers Association Guide to Starting Your Own Brewery by Dick Cantwell, which I highly recommend, and I'm going to link to this book in the description. I'm not exactly sure if this Excel model was, maybe came as part of the purchase or was available as part of the purchase of the book. But the thing that I really like about this is that, we have some real good confidence that these numbers and the ratios throughout the model are going to be on point and are going to be, industry standard. So that was just one thing that, don't really have to worry too much about some of those specific numbers and ratios and cost of goods sold ratios and that sort of thing, because they're coming from a good source here. So really what we're looking at here is just how does this template work for the intended purpose of raising capital? So from the lender's eyes or the investor's eyes, is this template, is this model working well? So, a couple things that I noticed here. These ratios here: beer cost of goods sold percentage, 15%, retail, 20%, payroll rate 33%. I don't exactly know what these are. They're kind of disorganized. I don't know. And one thing throughout the model is that I don't know what numbers I can change or should change. I don't really know what are assumptions versus calculated numbers. So a lot of times in models that we build, we highlight the cells. So I highlighted, these cells to just indicate that you can change this model. So if we wanted to, say, well, our payroll rate percentage is not going to be 33, it's going to be 40. I don't know. Clearly it did end up changing a number up here, but it's unclear what are assumptions that could be changed. So that's a easy area just to improve the clarity of the model. There's also here in the cost of goods sold, I think I have a feel for what's going on here. You've got your beer total cost of goods sold, which is a function of that 15% times the taproom sales, and then they're saying here that grain represents 65% of the total cost of goods sold. So if I look at this, it's taking total cost of goods sold times 65% or 0.65 to come up with that. So that makes sense, but again, just kind of not super clear what is going on in the model and what these numbers are and whether I should change them or not. Again, I think the numbers actually end up making a lot of sense once you get used to it. But you have to remember that who's looking at this model, an investor or a lender, wants it to be easy for them, and this is kind of unclear to me. We don't want to make the people with money have to work too hard to understand your model. Another thing that I did like, but was also unclear what this was doing, but I'm pretty sure I figured out this is like a seasonality adjustment. So it's saying like what percentage of sales occurs in each month. And it's, I think, a way to adjust for seasonality, which, again, these numbers probably make perfect sense. I just don't know exactly what they mean and whether I should change them or not. Jumping into some of these different tabs here, there's a schedule, kind of a open schedule, sales per week schedule. It's it's not super clear. Again, kind of like what numbers here should I change? What should I not? We've got pints sold, growlers sold, flights, and retail. And then they also have, I think, their payroll section here. So how many people do they have? How many hours? Daily hours. So again, don't have any problem with the actual numbers, just structure's a little bit confusing and hard to understand. On the brewery equipment cost, again, great detail here that I think was really helpful. Gives a total breakdown of $173.9 and the total equipment cost, but what we don't see is other startup costs. So is there going to be any build out for the facility that isn't included, or just other working capital startup costs? So as a potential lender or investor, I don't know if, do you need $173,000 or do you actually need $250,000 after you do some build out and have some working capital? Not super clear. There's a cost of goods sold page here that is useful. It kind of shows the difference between a 10 barrel system and a 1 barrel system. And I think can be useful. A little difficult formatting here to see what's going on, but with some time, I think you could figure that out. So, that's the last tab on this, and I think, probably a good set of projections with actually a lot of thought and detail put into this, right? What they're missing is just what those lenders and investors are used to seeing. They're used to seeing 3-statement financials, so an income statement, cash flow statement, and balance sheet, and we don't see that anywhere here. What really all we get to see, if we come back to this first year by month, we do get to see, net income at the end of the year, and you get to see net income monthly down here, which is useful, but we don't see how much cash you have on hand each month or cash flow, because net income can be different than cash flow. So important to actually have a full model there. There's also, because the different assumptions are not highlighted or clear what is an assumption and what is not, there's not really any way for the investor or lender to play around with the numbers. If they said, hey, I want to change the sales level or the breakdown here, I think we've got like 94% coming from tap, 6% from the tap room, 6% from retail. There's not really any clarity whether I can play around with those numbers. And then I would say it's also unclear what's driving sales. So, we just have these numbers here, which is taking total expected annual sales. Okay, so you're driving sales based on the schedule, right? But how do you decide that you're going to sell 200 pints on Wednesdays, 250 on Thursdays? The way I like to typically think about financial models is really from the bottom up and saying we need to attract customers and retain those customers and have them come back again and again. And so a lot of times there's going to be kind of customers from word of mouth, and there's going to be customers that you acquire from advertising. And so there should be some cost to acquire a customer. And then some percentage of those customers are going to turn into regular customers, and they're going to come back, and they will probably spend a certain dollar amount per month. And I like to kind of think about it that way and drive my sales projections from that perspective, instead of these pint sales, maybe they're pulling this from, what an average brewery is doing, or maybe from the book there's some detail on that. But the challenge is that when the rubber meets the road and you actually open your doors, you actually have to get a customer in the door and you have to retain a customer, or this you're not going to sell, right? And so I want to see from a financial model perspective that I've thought about, how do I actually, what's it actually cost me to acquire a customer, and how much Facebook advertising do I need to do to get someone, a first-time person, to come into our brewery and give us a try, and then of that, what percentage of them are going to come back and be regulars, and how much are they going to spend when they come back. So I would change around the revenue model a little bit to think through that process. And then, the last thing I'd really mention is there's not a great way, this is kind of built for, I guess, two revenue line items, tap room and retail. There's not great way to add in different revenue models. So, lots of breweries could be a production brewery facility with 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 tap rooms in multiple locations. They're all kind of supplied by the production brewery. You could have a brewery with a full-scale restaurant or something in between. You could have a brewery and a winery or distillery, or a brewery with a distribution first kind of model instead of retail. And all of these things are things that customers have come to us over the years and asked us to kind of build out those specific models. So we have a number of templates where we've kind of already done that work and built out a model for many of these different kinds of structures that all really make things different. It would be pretty tough in this model if you said, "Oh, I want to add in a restaurant." There's not a good way to do that here, which is fine. That was not really maybe the intention of this template, but it may be what your plan is as a startup. And so I will link to the various number of templates that we have, kind of different variations of breweries, in the description of this video below. And maybe one of those templates could just set you ahead and really help you get through the fundraising process and get on with what you want to be doing, which is brewing. So and if you already have a model, and maybe you're like this and you've got some numbers down and you'd like someone to take a look and maybe say, hey, how can we take what we've got and convert it into kind of a model that's going to meet the demands of a lender or investor, that's what we do. So feel free to shoot that over to us or just ask questions. Support@ProjectionHub.com, and we'd be happy to take a look and see how we can help. All right, thanks.